Kentucky and Tennessee get set to do battle Saturday night in Lexington. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game between the Wildcats and the Vols. Hello, I'm Chris Phillips. He's Cole the Bear Thompson. We appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. As always, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. We are creeping ever so close to 30,000 subscribers. We can't do it without your love and support. Also, guys, make sure you check out our friends over at FanDuel because, as always, we are brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, FanDuel.com/SECU, to join today and get started with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/SECU to get in on the action today. The Kentucky Wildcats and Tennessee Volunteers get set to do battle Saturday night in Lexington. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game. Kentucky showing some positive signs of life last week when they took Texas to overtime. Meanwhile, Tennessee looking to bounce back from a tough game down in Tuscaloosa as they fell to the Crimson Tide in the third Saturday of October. Hello, friends. I'm Chris Phillips. Joining me, as he always does, my co-host, colleague, partner in crime, Mr. Cole the Bear Thompson. Bear, what's going on, my friend? Appreciate you taking the time. And forgive me for both fan bases for saying this, but I know y'all will probably agree in your heart of hearts. And Bear, I don't want to speak for you, but this feels like there's always one every week, right? This feels like the forgotten game of the weekend. Let's call it for what it is. Kind of shoved in that night game slot. We've got so many other big-time matchups. Don't sleep on it necessarily from what it could turn into. But, yeah, this is the one I think if you ask most folks, hey, do you know who Tennessee or do you know who Kentucky plays this weekend? I don't even know if they'd be able to answer it. Either way, we're here talking about it, so it's all that matters.
Tennessee, do you want to get right? Like, can we get back to being the version of the team that we thought could go to the college football playoff because of outside of, a few really bad mistakes in the first half against Alabama? Things to like. Not ready to sell my stock on you, but losing to Kentucky definitely would do that. Kentucky, you outgained Texas by over 175 yards. You were better on first downs. You were better on third down execution. You had better fourth down conversion attempts, and you lost. I mean, guys, if this is not the sign that change is inevitable and Mark Stoops needs to be shown the door, I don't know what is. Is losing to Tennessee by 70 enough for you to kind of go ahead and say, hey, we're not a good football team? Or are you still going to go ahead and try to convince me in the comments every single week, hey, if we just do X, Y, and Z this way, we're very dangerous. Watch out for it. Guys, come on. It's Tennessee, one of the highest scoring offenses in the country, and you're giving up 25 points per game. You may give up 50 by the time that we get to half.
Yeah, Bear, this one's going to be interesting Saturday. An old SEC rivalry, by the way. We should mention this game's been being played forever. It'll take place, the latest chapter, Saturday night, 6:45 p.m. Central Time on the SEC Network in Lexington, Kentucky at Kroger Field. Bear, Tennessee's a 9.5-point favorite in this game. The over-under is set at 53.5. Tennessee leads the all-time series 84, 26, and 9. And, of course, the last meeting came last year. Tennessee won that game by a final score of 28-18. Bear, more on the series history. You and I were talking about this pre-show. I mean, Tennessee has just straight up dominated this series. Kentucky has beaten Tennessee a grand total of 3 times since 1985. 2 of those, to be fair, have come in Lexington. One of them came in 2011. The other one came in 2017. The other one came in 2020 in Knoxville. Kentucky actually won that game by a final score of 34-7, believe it or not. But, Bear, outside of that, it's been Tennessee, and these games haven't been close. I mean, it's a lot of 48-0, 52-0, 20-7s, 27-8. I'm just going through scores here. It's, just been very, very lopsided. So Tennessee has dominated the series, no doubt. Death taxes and the Vols finding a way to beat Kentucky. Will that be the case this season? We shall see. Bear, I want to start, though, with Kentucky first. Because my question with the Cats is this. Who is Kentucky really? Was last week an indication that – was that a sign of maybe some positive things to come for the Cats or more an indictment on Texas? Because to that point, you and I talked after that game, everyone that had faced Kentucky had exceeded their yards per game rushing. Texas was the first one that had not. So I'm thinking it probably is more of an indictment on Texas of hey, Texas is just kind of who we thought they were, not that Kentucky has turned some corner or anything. We'll find out more on Saturday night, but the curious case of the Wildcats, Bear, and you also throw in this layer as well. Who is Kentucky and who does Kentucky need to be for Mark Stoops to be back next year? Because conference conversations are seriously happening that potentially, Bear, we might have a new coach at UK come season's end.
At some point, you just got to rip off the Band-Aid and be willing to pay whatever a buyout costs if you want change. And if you're okay with seeing as the bottom dweller, basic whipping boy of the SEC, by all means, keep Mark Stoops. But
the basketball school, I mean,
but that's really what it is. You can throw all your money now into baseball to potentially get back into that conversation of a super regional team, a College World Series contender, and be a basketball school. But if you continue to run this thing with Mark Stoops, because if you don't want to pay his buyout, expect 3-9 seasons, 4-8 seasons, 2-10 records, and a legacy from his standpoint that will now go from being honored to tarnished because of you didn't realize that this has kind of passed you by and change has been necessary to come to Lexington. So regardless of that, I think that this is going to be a big time game for, I think, Kentucky to kind of show offensively. Yeah, we are better than what the numbers have said. I mean, Cutter Boley, if you would have told me last week that we had a quarterback throw for 258 yards, finished with a team leading 45 rushing yards, so a grand total of over 300 total yards of offense, I would have said Arch Manning had a good day. And that's like, oh no, that's Cutter Boley. Like that's who he is. Arch has had one game this year where he's had over 300 yards of offense, and it was against a winless Sam Houston State squad that still has yet to win a football game. And they have fans that are like 50 plus that go to their matchups right now out in Houston. So that's been the only good game offensively that we have seen Texas play this year. For Kentucky, you can at least say there's been some moments. They had a couple of good drives against Ole Miss. They had a couple of good drives against South Carolina. I mean, like you could say those things if you want to, but still, you average 3 rushing yards a contest. Your leading running back had the same amount of carries and the same amount of yards as your quarterback. Your leading receiver was Seth McGowan out of the backfield on dink and dunk passes. It more so is an indictment on Texas than what it is on Kentucky. But with that being said, again, if you just want to be able to save your job, you may have to win this one. And the good news is 2 of the last 3 times that you've beaten Kentucky, Tennessee, in Lexington, you maybe do one this year. But you also did have your 13-12 game last week where it probably was necessary to be this week to get that done.
Bear, like you mentioned, and I do agree with you on the points in Kentucky, by the way, but I think it's a big bounce back opportunity for Tennessee. You know, that game down in Tuscaloosa, it's interesting. You look at the numbers. Tennessee had more first downs than Alabama. They had more total yards. They went 4 for 5 on 4th downs and Alabama went 1 for 1. You know, they weren't bad on 3rd down necessarily. They had more passing yards. They had more rushing yards. They did have 3 more penalties, and they did lose the time of possession. But it's not like Tennessee it doesn't feel like it should have been a 17-point margin of defeat. But you had some back-breaking mistakes in that game. You had some critical mistakes. You had a pick 6 on the goal line. You had a intentional grounding that happened in the end zone. I think it's just a big opportunity for Tennessee to get back to playing clean, efficient football. You know, not that Joey Aguilar played bad, but limiting the mistakes, limiting the turnovers, if you will, and just get back to playing more of the version we saw from Tennessee before that, which I thought was, you know, pretty efficient. I thought they took care of the football. I thought they were a pretty disciplined team. You know, I wouldn't change a whole lot offensively because, again, it's not like they were bad on offense last week. And especially, too, though, this Kentucky defense, let's call it for what it is, Bear, it's going to provide an opportunity for Tennessee to get back to and feeling really good about themselves, especially on the offensive side, maybe even more so defensively, a week after going against Alabama, who we see what Ty Simpson's doing. We see their weapons on the outside. Kentucky doesn't have that. I know Cutter Boley had a pretty solid game against Texas, but they just simply don't have it. So just as a whole, I think you hit the nail on the head. Get right game. I know it's a rivalry. And Bear, I don't know if you knew this, the trophy for this game, I don't think they play for it anymore. They may. Somebody correct me in the comments. The beer barrel, that used to be the trophy for this football game. They had a beer barrel that was a third of it was orange, a third of it was blue, a third of it was white. They had the scores and the years on the game. Pretty cool trophy. But, I mean, it's, you know, you hate to call like a rivalry game necessarily a get-right game, but also is it really a rivalry, I guess, with the results. So it is kind of that get-right opportunity for Tennessee just across the board.
No, besides that, you got to remind yourself if you're Tennessee, and this is not to say that you were going to win the football game against Alabama, but you were a safety and a interception at the 2-yard line away from being tied 14-14 going into the first half. Now, the second half adjustments for Alabama may have been able to give them enough of an edge to where maybe final score is 31-28. maybe somehow, some way, we do see Tennessee be able to pull off the upset out in Bryant-Denny Stadium. I'm not saying that those things can happen, because you are right. They still finished with over 400 yards of offense. They still were better on third down execution. They still had more first downs. They had 7 penalties, but they were able to run the football efficiently. It's just the mental mistakes at the worst time possible ultimately led to Tennessee losing by 17 instead of maybe mounting a comeback and beating Alabama on the road. You just got to avoid that stuff, because if, again, you still rushed with your leading guy in Deshaun Bishop for over 120 yards. You still had Braylon Staley finish with 97 receiving yards. Mike Matthews had a pretty good day. You got Chris Brazzell still involved in the passing attack. You had Miles Kitzelman get involved in the passing attack. So the consistency of what you got with the weapons that can win at the intermediate part of the field, on the deep balls, on the short games that you can watch them be able to break on open for gains of 7, 9, 15, 18 after the catch, they're all still there. The play calling is fine. It's just you went up against a team that at the right moment found its pass rush and made you pay. And you had one bad interception where, unfortunately, Xavier Brown had enough speed to outrun everybody and get into the end zone to make it 23-7 at halftime. That's really it. This is still a great defense. I mean, again, you look at the Alabama game. They still were able to get after Tyson. I mean, they still were able to get after the ground game. 4 tackles for losses. They're still number 5 in the country in sacks. They're still number 4 in the country in tackles for loss. They're still number 8 in the country in pressure rate. So everything that you want to see from a front seven that was on display at times against Alabama is there, and you're going up against a weaker offensive line. It feels wrong to say it's a get-right game against a rival, because you always want to see 2 teams be able to deliver. But it's a get-right game against a rival, and it's a way for you to get back on track, punch your ticket to a bowl eligibility at 6-2, and look ahead to the rest of the season, where game against Vanderbilt, not as challenging anymore. Game against Oklahoma, not as challenging anymore. Game against game against Florida in the Swamp. That may be an upset, but still, you can still have everything ahead of you if you just do the little things right. And if you do the little things right, if you do the little things right, this should be Alabama versus Tennessee, where Tennessee is actually masquerading as Alabama. That's what we should see on Saturday.
Bear, any other key factors for you or keys to this game when we lock in our picks and predictions? I feel like this one's kind of cut and dry at this point, pretty simple. Anything else stand out to you that I'm missing here?
I mean, if we're being honest, probably just, can we finally see some explosive plays for Cutter Boley in this passing attack? Because when you look at Tennessee still is allowing 30.9 points per game. Their pass defense, for as much as we can go ahead and say maybe it's turned the corner, it's 119th in the country. I mean, you got Jamori Macklin. You got some other guys in Kendrick Law. You feel good about what you got with Josh Cass at tight end. Can you win on the explosive plays? Can you win just downfield? And can you use this as an opportunity to kind of prove, whether it be to Mark Stoops, whether it be to the next coaching staff that comes on in, hey, I'm the right guy for the job. Like, it's not my fault that I am in a situation where I got to do a little bit of everything. Our offensive line is bad. If we don't have a solid run game per days, I'm kind of limited here. So it's just things like that I think could be on display for Kentucky. For Kentucky also, can you eliminate some explosive plays? I mean, because you do look at this, and it's very surprising, but for as bad as we make fun of Kentucky's defense, they're actually better in almost every single category than Tennessee -1. Run defense. Everything else, they're better in coverage. They're better on third down execution. They've allowed fewer explosive plays. There's just things that you look at that say, could we at least maybe get a couple of things to swing our way, get a turnover or two, play in short field position, and that be enough to survive? I mean, it's possible. It is. I don't think it happens, but it's possible, because it is college football on a Saturday.
College football on a Saturday night. Expect the unexpected. Bear, that being said, let's lock in some picks. Let's lock in some predictions. Tennessee, Kentucky, 6:45 Central Time. Falls a 9.5-point favorite. What say you, Bear? You want me to go first, or you want?
I'll just go first. I'll knock this out. Cutter Boley, I think, could be a very serviceable quarterback, and I do like that you have still 2 running backs that are able to make plays. Like, I do believe that if you give Dante Dowell space, he can at least get a first down. I think that if you look at Seth McGowan, he can be able to create those hard yardage after contact and move forward for a fresh set of plays. Like, I think that those things are possible. But It's more so to me, last week was an indictment on Texas being able to be a playoff team. That's not a playoff team. They will lose games. They will lose multiple games. They will finish the year with an underwhelming 8-4 record, and they'll be playing in Nashville or they'll be playing in the Pop Tart Bowl or something along those lines instead of being a national title favorite like we all said. Nobody really had big expectations for Kentucky this year. I believe that they had the least amount of juice when it came to SEC media days. I think that you see that. And whether or not we want to say, hey, your offense took a trend in the right direction last week, losing despite winning in every single metric to Texas does show that there are some limitations to where you're not going to be able to fix this by the time that you get to next Saturday. And Tennessee has a better offense than you. And Tennessee can run the football more efficiently. They're one of the best rushing attacks in college football. They can win with the explosive plays downfield. There's a lot of things to like about what you've seen from the offensive line group. They still have a defense that gets after quarterbacks and can put the pressure on. So why am I going to believe that this is the week that Kentucky finally decides to wake on up? I'm not. I agree with you. I think this is one of the best bets of the weekend. And unfortunately, you're going up against a juggernaut offense that's coming off of a heartbreaking, but also kind of reality check loss to Alabama that maybe it's going to be taking out some frustrations on you on the road. So I think this is going to be big. I think it's going to be pretty much what we saw for Alabama versus Tennessee a week ago. And I'm going to go even close to that score, 41-20 final score. I think that Tennessee gets back right. I think that the offense is able to hum. I think that we see a lot of traction from the other running backs, not named Deshaun Bishop. And I think that the defense does a good job of not allowing a team like Arkansas or a lower level roster be able to at least make this thing interesting down the stretch despite it being a road game. So I got a double-digit victory. I think Tennessee wins. I think Tennessee covers. I think it's one of the best plays of the weekend.
Bear, I'll keep mine short, sweet, and to the point as well. I do think it's a get-right spot for Tennessee. I don't buy a lot of stock into, Kentucky having turned some corner, or it was more an indictment on Texas, I think, and their shortcomings, and it was, Kentucky all of a sudden showing that they're, should be taken more seriously than they should be. Let's put it that way. Tennessee got punched in the mouth last Saturday against Alabama. We all know what Alabama is doing right now. One of the best teams in college football. You could argue the best team in the SEC. I still think Tennessee is a damn good football team that very well could find themselves in the college football playoff. I think they bounced back the right way, Bear. I agree with you. I didn't list it as one of my best bets. The 9.5 is a really, really interesting number. I don't know. I don't really know why. I don't know why Vegas has this as a single-digit number. It makes you think a little bit where I'm almost like, hey, is it when it's too good to be true? It seems like most of the time it is, but Tennessee is the far superior football team. So whether I'm gambling on this game or not, which I don't think it's a play for me at the moment, I'm going to pick Tennessee. I think Tennessee wins this game pretty comfortably. I'll go a little bit tighter than you had just because maybe the whole rivalry game aspect, and I don't know, but I think Tennessee's in control of this football game. I don't think it's ever in doubt. Give me Vols 34, Wildcats 17. Again, don't think this game's ever in doubt. I do think it's a bounce-back game for Tennessee. I think they'll do a really good job of taking care of the football, not making the killer mistakes they made a week ago. And, I think early on, obviously, Kentucky's going to have fight. I think no doubt. Night game, home atmosphere. Very curious to see what Kroger Field is like because, we have seen at times that Kroger Field can get jumping for the right ball game, especially at night. Again, where is that fan base? I think they're at this point probably just ready for basketball season, but I think Tennessee goes in there no matter what. I think they bounce back the right way. I think they use the Alabama game as sort of a, hey, let's use that as motivation to go out and kick somebody else's ass, and I think they'll do that. Give me Tennessee 34. Kentucky 17. I've got them covering. Again, I don't know if it's an official play for me. It's not an official play in our best bets. It may be a late ad for me, but, yeah, I think Tennessee is going to win whether they cover or not. I think more than likely they do, to be honest with you. So, Bear and I both going with Tennessee on a Kentucky Saturday night to get a big win in Lexington. Guys, we'd love to hear your thoughts. You agree with us, you disagree. Who's your pick to come out on top Saturday night in Lexington, Tennessee, or Kentucky? Guys, it's going to do all for us. We appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in before we get out of here. Do want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel because, as always, we are brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel's got an offer you don't want to miss this NFL season. New customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets. If you win, that's right, pick a bet $5. If it wins, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. You can build parlays, bet player props, ride the live lines. whatever your style, FanDuel's got you covered. The NFL season's here. The only question is, are you ready to play? Visit FanDuel.com/SECU to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Once again, FanDuel.com/SECU to get in on the action today. Guys, once again, that's going to do all for us. We appreciate you all tuning in. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts, all across all of your favorite social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. For Cole the Bear Thompson, I'm Chris Phillips. We're signing off. Y'all have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you all on the other side.